Trent Adler didn't expect to get punched in the face while walking his daughter to school. But life as a single dad rarely gave him the luxury of predictable mornings. "Daddy, the lady's purse," Olivia shouted, pointing at the sidewalk ahead. Trent's eyes snapped toward a woman struggling with a man yanking her handbag. She was dressed in a sleek beige coat and heels that didn't belong on cracked pavement, but her wide, terrified eyes said it all. She wasn't from this side of town. "Stay here, Liv," Trent told his daughter firmly, pushing her gently behind the bench at the corner. Then he ran. The thief jerked the bag free from the woman's shoulder just as Trent reached them. Without thinking, Trent grabbed the guy's arm and yanked him back. "Run," Trent barked at the woman. But she didn't run, she gasped. "Watch out." Too late, the thief slammed his fist into Trent's jaw. Pain exploded across his face as he stumbled back, but he didn't let go. He twisted the guy's wrist until the purse dropped. The thief cursed, kicked Trent in the ribs, and sprinted away down the alley. Trent bent over, catching his breath, blood dripping from his lip. The woman rushed to his side. "Oh my God, are you okay?" Her voice was breathless, urgent, British accent, expensive perfume, way out of place here. "I'm fine," he winced and wiped his mouth. "You all right?" She nodded, eyes wide. "You didn't have to do that." "Couldn't let him get away with it." Trent stood upright, jaw aching. "You're lucky he didn't have a weapon." "I thank you, really." She looked down at her purse in disbelief. "You didn't even hesitate." "I've got a kid," he said, pointing to where Olivia peeked cautiously from behind the bench. "Wouldn't want her to think we just walk past people getting hurt." The woman followed his gaze. "That's your daughter." "Yeah, Olivia, she's 6, and late for school now." "I'll drive you," she said immediately. He raised a brow. "No offense, lady, but I just met you, and you almost got mugged 5 minutes ago." She laughed, surprised by herself maybe. "Fair, but I owe you." "You don't owe me anything," Trent said. "Just glad you're safe." At that, her expression shifted. Something soft entered her eyes. "At least let me buy you a coffee." He hesitated. "I've got work." "I'll make it quick, please." Trent sighed. Olivia tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, I want a muffin." He looked between his daughter and the woman. She didn't look like she belonged on his side of town, or even in this city at all, but there was something genuine in her eyes. Not stuck up, not fake, just grateful. "All right," Trent said. "One coffee." "Thank you, I'm Fallon Ellery." "Trent Adler." She extended a hand. He shook it, then led Olivia down the street. Fallon walked beside them, her heels clicking on the pavement, her coat flapping slightly in the breeze. At the corner cafe, Fallon paid for everything before Trent could argue 2 muffins, a coffee, and a hot chocolate. "I wasn't kidding about it being quick," he said, glancing at the clock. "I've got a job site to get to." "You're in construction." "Handyman, mostly apartments and small businesses, fixing stuff no one else wants to." Fallon stirred her coffee with a tiny wooden stick. "You're brave." "I just didn't want my kid seeing someone get hurt and thinking that's normal." "I meant your face," she said, eyeing the swelling on his jaw. He grinned. "Well, yeah, that too." Olivia leaned toward Fallon. "You're really pretty. Are you a princess?" Trent choked on his coffee. Fallon laughed softly. "Not quite, but thank you, sweetheart." They only stayed 15 minutes before Trent had to go. Fallon scribbled something on a napkin and handed it to him. "In case you ever, I don't know, need help with anything or more coffee." He took it reluctantly. "Thanks." She crouched to Olivia's level. "You have a very brave daddy." "I know," Olivia said proudly. Trent took her hand. "Come on, Liv." Fallon watched them walk away, her expression unreadable. What Trent didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that Fallon wasn't just some woman in a fancy coat. She was the sole heir to Ellery & Co., a luxury real estate empire based out of London, worth over $80 million. She'd been in town to scout a development deal. And now, she couldn't stop thinking about the man who'd taken a punch to protect her. 2 days later, she showed up at the apartment Trent was repairing. He was on a ladder, replacing a busted light fixture, when he heard the knock. "Doors open," he called. Fallon stepped inside, heels clicking. Trent blinked. "You again." "You didn't call." "I didn't need anything." She smiled. "I did." He climbed down the ladder. "You all right?" "Yes, but I wanted to see how your jaw was." He rubbed it, still sore. She pulled a small white box from her bag. "I brought you something." Inside was a sleek ice pack, shaped to fit the jawline. "Fancy," he muttered, eyebrows raised. "And this," she handed him a small envelope. Inside was a gift card for a high-end spa. "For the pain." "I can't accept this." "You already did," she said, "and I don't take no for an answer." He looked at her. "You always this stubborn." "You have no idea." Trent didn't trust easily, not anymore. But something about Fallon felt different. She was elegant, sure, but she didn't act like she was better than anyone. And she kept showing up, looking at him like he was more than just a handyman with a kid and a busted truck. "You really don't have to do all this," he said quietly. "I know," she met his eyes, "but I want to." He didn't know what to say to that. Fallon smiled again. "Come to dinner with me." "Like a date." "If you want it to be." He looked down at his dusty work boots. "Ain't used to women like you asking guys like me out." "Maybe I'm not like other women." He laughed. "Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out." And just like that, something shifted between them. He didn't know she was a millionaire. But she already knew she was falling for him. Rain battered the windshield as Trent pulled his truck into the narrow parking spot outside the small diner Fallon had chosen. He hadn't expected her to pick a place like this: tin roof, flickering neon sign, the kind of joint where the waitress knew your name and your coffee order by your second visit. But she had, and that's why he'd agreed. Olivia was at his sister's for the night, clutching her stuffed elephant and promising not to fall asleep until he got back. He'd spent longer than he wanted to admit debating which shirt didn't have paint stains, finally settling on the only one with all its buttons intact. When he walked in, Fallon was already there. She sat at a booth in the far corner, her coat draped beside her, hair swept into a loose twist that made her look like she belonged in a glossy magazine. But she didn't seem out of place. She was sipping from a chipped mug like it held imported tea instead of burnt coffee. "You came," she said as he slid into the seat across from her. "You said pie, didn't you?" "They make a good one," she replied, handing him a menu. He glanced at it, though he already knew what he'd order. "You surprise me." "How so?" "This isn't exactly fine dining." "I've had enough fine dining to last me a lifetime. I like places with character." He nodded slowly. "You always that hard to read?" "I don't try to be," she said, "but it's become a habit." A waitress with a tired smile came to take their order. Fallon asked for cherry pie and black coffee. Trent picked the same, though he hadn't had cherry anything in years. When they were alone again, she leaned her elbow on the table. "I was hoping you'd say yes." "To pie?" "To seeing me again." He studied her carefully. "You always chase down guys who get in fistfights for you." "No, but then again, no one's ever done that for me before." He hesitated. "That's hard to believe." "It shouldn't be," she said, gaze softening. Sometimes people only see what they can gain from you, not who you really are. He didn't ask what she meant. Instead, he said, "You don't seem like someone who gets ignored." She gave a short laugh. "That's the thing, I'm not ignored. I'm curated." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means people edit themselves around me. They act like I'm a checklist. Charm, flattery, ambition. But no one's ever looked at me and just said, 'You all right?' Not until you." He shifted, uncomfortable with the weight of her honesty. "I'm not great at pretending." "That's what I like about you." The waitress returned with steaming plates, the rich scent of warm cherries and sugar filling the air. Fallon pushed her fork into the crust, then paused. "I didn't plan to stay in this city long," she said. He looked up. "You leaving?" "I don't know yet. I was supposed to finalize a deal, fly back to London, and forget this place ever existed. And now I met someone who makes forgetting a lot harder than I expected." He didn't respond, not right away, because part of him wanted to believe her, and another part had been taught not to trust things that came too easy. "I don't want to mess with your life," she said. "I know you've got responsibilities." He set his fork down. "You say that like it's a burden." "I said it like it's something real." She met his eyes, "And that's rare for me." He didn't know what to say to that, so he took another bite of pie. They talked about everything but themselves after that. Music. The way the rain made the city smell like iron and wet pavement. How Olivia wanted to be an astronaut one week and a pastry chef the next. Fallon told him about a time she got lost in Rome and ended up dancing with strangers in a plaza until sunrise. By the time they left, the rain had slowed to a mist, and she walked beside him to his truck. "Do you always tell stories like that?" he asked. "Only when I want someone to know me better." He unlocked the door and turned to face her. "You're not from around here." "No." "You planning to be?" She hesitated. "I'm thinking about it." Neither moved right away. The street was quiet, water dripping from lampposts, their breath visible in the cold. "Can I see you again?" she asked. "You already know where I work." "That's not a no." "It's not a yes either," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. She smiled. "Then I'll take that as progress." He watched her walk toward her car, a sleek black sedan that didn't belong in this kind of neighborhood. She waved before getting in. He didn't wave back, but he didn't look away either. That night, lying on the couch with Olivia snoring softly in the next room, Trent pulled the napkin out of his wallet. Her number had faded at the edge, but the ink was still legible. He didn't call, but he didn't throw it away either. Trent balanced the heavy toolbox on one shoulder as he climbed the stairs of the old building off Maple Street. The landlord had called about a busted radiator and a flickering hallway light. Nothing glamorous, but it paid enough to cover Olivia's school books and a few overdue bills. At the top floor, he knocked. When the door swung open, he froze. Fallon. Not in heels or a tailored coat, but in navy joggers and a fitted sweatshirt, barefoot, her hair pulled back in a low knot. She looked younger like this. Unfiltered. Real. "You live here?" he asked, shifting the weight of the toolbox. "Temporarily. I subleased it while I'm in town." She stepped aside. "Come in." He hesitated. "This the unit with the radiator problem?" She nodded, "And the light in the hallway. I didn't expect you to be the one they sent." "I didn't expect you to be behind the door." She gave a soft exhale, then motioned to the radiator along the far wall. "It started making a knocking sound last night. I thought it was going to explode." He crouched, setting the toolbox down, and inspected the base. "It's old, probably air in the line." She sank onto the couch, tucking one leg beneath her. "I didn't know you did work in this building." I take jobs where I can get them. Is that why you didn't call? He glanced up at her. I figured you'd be on a plane by now. I was supposed to be, but I asked for an extension on the deal. Why? She hesitated. I wasn't ready to leave. He returned his focus to the radiator, loosening the valve with a slow turn. A hiss of air escaped, followed by a stream of water. He caught it with a bucket, then tightened it again. I didn't mean to push you, she said quietly. You didn't. But you pulled away. He stood, wiping his hands on a rag. I've got a kid. I don't bring people into her life unless I know they're staying. Fallon's voice softened. That's fair. He crossed to the window, testing the latch. And I'm not exactly in your world. I'm not asking you to be. He turned around. But that's the thing, Fallon. I don't even know what your world is. You show up with spa gift cards and perfect manners, but I don't know where you go when I'm not around. Who you are when you're not drinking coffee in a booth pretending you like cherry pie. She stood slowly. You want the truth. I want whatever's real. She crossed the room, stopping inches from him. My father owns Ellery & Co. We build high-rise properties in London, Tokyo, and Dubai. I'm the sole heir. Manage acquisitions and development portfolios across 5 countries. I've signed contracts worth more in a day than most people make in 10 years. That's where I go when I'm not with you. He didn't flinch, didn't step back. Just stared at her like he was weighing every syllable. Why didn't you tell me? He asked finally. Because I liked who I was around you. And I didn't want that to change because of a number on a balance sheet. He exhaled slowly. You think care about money. I think people do strange things when they find out. I'm not people, I'm me. I know, she said, that's what scares me. Something shifted in the room, like the air had thickened with unspoken truths. He watched her a moment longer, then walked over to the hallway light. He unscrewed the cover, replaced the flickering bulb with a spare from his bag, and flipped the switch. The hallway flooded with clean, steady light. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You didn't answer me. To what? Does this change things? He stood there, the bulb still warm in his hand. It doesn't change what I saw the first time I looked at you. What did you see? Someone scared, someone real, not money, not some empire, just you. She blinked, caught off guard. But it does change what I need to know next, he said. Are you staying? I don't know yet. That's not good enough. I'm trying, her voice cracked slightly, but I've never done this before. Done what? Let someone matter. He stepped toward her, slow and deliberate, until he was close enough to see the flicker of insecurity in her eyes. I don't need your money, he said. I don't need your name, but I do need to know you're not going to walk out the second it gets inconvenient. I wouldn't do that. Then stay. Her breath caught, stay where? Here in this mess, with me. The hallway light buzzed faintly above them. She looked up at him like she was seeing something she hadn't let herself believe could be real. Okay, she whispered. He nodded once, then turned back toward the radiator, grabbing the wrench. I still have to finish the job, he muttered. A laugh escaped her, unguarded and bright. It was the first time he'd heard her laugh like that. And it was the moment he knew he was in deeper than he'd ever expected. Fallon stood just outside the elementary school gates, nervously holding the envelope in her hand. The sounds of children laughing drifted across the playground, but her focus was locked on the door where Olivia would come out. She hadn't planned it this way. Hadn't anticipated that a 6-year-old might be the final thread tying her to this city. But here she was, dressed down in jeans and a soft gray coat, waiting for a little girl she barely knew but already cared for more than she expected. She spotted her first. Olivia came skipping down the steps, her backpack bouncing behind her, hair in two uneven braids. A woman in her late 30s followed close behind Trent's sister, Evelyn. Fallon approached slowly. "Hi," she said, stopping a few feet away. Evelyn's smile was cautious. "You're Fallon." "Yes, I hope it's all right I'm here. Trent mentioned you'd be picking her up today." Olivia lit up the moment she saw her. "You came." Fallon crouched down. "I told you I'd try." "You missed art day, but I saved you a drawing." Olivia pulled a folded paper from her bag and handed it over. "It's us, at the zoo." Fallon unfolded it, heart catching at the wildly colorful lines. "You gave me a giraffe purse." "It's fancy," Olivia said matter-of-factly. "Like you." Fallon laughed genuinely. "I love it." Evelyn watched the exchange carefully. "He talks about you, a lot." Fallon stood. "Care about him and her, I just didn't expect it." "You're not the only ones." "I know what this looks like," Fallon said, voice steady, "but I'm not running." "I didn't say you were," Evelyn said, "but I've watched my brother get left before, and not just by women." Fallon nodded. "I'm not going to disappear." "You'd better mean that." "I do." That night, Trent opened his apartment door to find Fallon and Olivia sprawled on the floor with colored pencils, giggling over a half-finished zoo scene. "I thought I was picking her up," he said, stunned. "She insisted I come," Fallon replied. "So I did." Olivia held up the drawing. "We added you. You're feeding the lions." Trent crouched next to them. "That's either brave or really dumb." Fallon grinned. "We decided brave." Later, after Olivia had fallen asleep with her drawings taped proudly to the wall, Trent stepped out onto the fire escape with Fallon. The city was quiet at this hour, just the hum of cars and the occasional bark of a dog down the block. "She likes you," he said. "I like her." He looked at her. "You didn't have to come today." "I wanted to." She tucked her hands into her coat pockets. "I'm not good at halfway. If I'm in, I'm all in." He leaned against the railing. "That envelope in your hand earlier, what was it?" She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled it out. "I was going to give this to you weeks ago. It's an offer for you to do the renovations on 3 of my U.S. properties, full contracts, your own crew. To cover licensing and startup. It's yours if you want it." He didn't take it. "Why now?" "Because I don't want you to think I'm here out of guilt or fantasy. I see what you're capable of. I want to invest in that." He looked out over the city. "You're not trying to buy me." "No," she said. "I'm trying to believe in you the way you believed in me when I was just a woman on a sidewalk with a broken purse." He took the envelope finally, but didn't open it. "This changes things." "Only if you let it." "Will you still be here if I say no?" "Yes." He turned to her, really looked at her. "Then I might say yes." She stepped closer. "I have a place in London and one in L.A., and now, I think, I want one here too, not because it's good business, but because I want to build something that feels like home." He reached for her hand. "You think this could be that?" "I know it already is." A week later, they stood in front of a small storefront on a corner lot, nothing but brick and dust now, but Fallon saw potential. Trent saw a future. Inside, Olivia ran between rooms, claiming one as her office and another as her fortress. Trent turned to Fallon. "You really want to do this?" She smiled. "We already are." He kissed her, not tentative, not questioning, certain. Outside, the sign above the door hadn't changed yet. But soon it would read, "Adler and Ellery Renovations." And under that, in smaller print, family-owned, heart-built. Because from the moment Trent took that punch, something bigger had begun. Not just a romance. but a life. Together. Fallon stared at the whiteboard in Trent's new office, her heels abandoned by the door, her bare feet curled under her on the leather armchair. She was dressed in one of his oversized flannels, the sleeves rolled up to her elbows, as she scribbled floor plans with a dry erase marker. The space wasn't finished paint cans still lined the wall. The desk was made of plywood balanced on sawhorses, and Olivia's crayon drawings had already colonized the lower half of one wall, but it was theirs. Trent stepped in holding 2 mugs of coffee, one with a chipped handle. That's the third version of that layout. She took the mug, blowing on the surface. I know, can't decide if the open plan feels intentional or just lazy. It's a juice bar, not a museum. But it's our first public project under the new brand. It has to feel different, thoughtful. He set his coffee down and leaned over the whiteboard, studying her scrawl. All right, then we lose the divider wall and push the seating closer to the front. That'll open the flow without making it echo. She looked up at him. That's actually good. He grinned. Occasionally I know what I'm doing. She pushed back in the chair, stretching. Keep waiting for this to feel like a mistake. And it doesn't, she tilted her head. Does it scare you? He leaned against the desk. What? That I'm starting a business with a woman who could outbid a Fortune 500 CEO and still have money left over for dessert. No, she said, amused, that it's not just the business. He met her eyes. It scared me more when I didn't know what you wanted. And now you do. I know you want a life, not just a plan. She stood slowly, walked to him and looped her arms around his waist. I don't need polished. I don't need perfect. I just need this. You've got it. She rested her head against his chest, and for a long moment they stood there, the city murmuring outside the second-story windows, the scent of fresh paint still lingering in the air. Later that evening, Trent took them to a rooftop downtown, one of the buildings Fallon had once considered buying and tearing down. Instead, she'd negotiated for the rooftop rights and turned it into a private garden space, half wildflowers, half patio, all magic under the string lights now glowing above them. Olivia darted between planters, counting bees. Fallon sat on the blanket Trent had laid out, her legs tucked to the side, her hair loose and catching the light like spun copper. Trent opened a small cooler, pulling out sandwiches and lemonade. You pack this? She asked, surprised. Don't look so shocked. I just assumed we were picking up takeout. Trying to impress you. You already did. They ate quietly for a while, watching the sun sink behind the skyline. Olivia, exhausted from her bee hunt, curled up with her head in Fallon's lap and promptly fell asleep. Trent watched them, then reached into his jacket pocket. I was going to wait, he said, his voice quieter now, but I don't want to. She looked up, confused. Wait for what? He held out a small black box. No velvet, no fanfare, just simple, solid truth. Her breath caught. I know this isn't how it usually goes, and I know your life was built on things that shine, but this is what I want. You, me, her, a real life, not perfect, not fancy, just ours. She opened the box. Inside was a gold band with a single diamond, not massive, not overstated, but radiant in its simplicity. You don't have to answer now, he added quickly. I just needed you to know. I'm saying yes, she said, her voice thick with emotion, before you even finish. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He leaned in and kissed her, careful not to wake the sleeping child between them. It was soft and slow and filled with the kind of certainty that only grows after surviving doubt. A week later, they were married in the garden behind Evelyn's house. It wasn't a grand event, just family, close friends, and one overexcited 6-year-old flower girl who dropped half the petals before the ceremony even started. Fallon wore a simple white dress with no designer label. Trent wore a navy suit Olivia had picked out, claiming the buttons made him look like a prince. There were no press releases, no headlines. Just vows whispered under fairy lights and an arch of wild roses Fallon had insisted on arranging herself. At the reception, Olivia stood on a chair and made a toast. "My new mommy is brave and pretty and makes the best pancakes. She makes Daddy laugh, even when he's grumpy. And now I have 2 superheroes, so that's really fair." Fallon cried through the whole thing. Afterward, they danced barefoot under the stars, the music low and tender. "You know," Fallon murmured against his shoulder, "I used to think love had to be complicated, that it came with conditions and negotiations." Trent kissed the top of her head, and now I know it just has to be chosen, every day, again and again." He held her tighter. "I'll choose you every time." And he did. They built the business slowly, carefully, turning run-down properties into community spaces, combining her vision with his hands-on instincts. Olivia helped name the projects the Lemon Loft, the Painted Corner, the Starclimb Library. Each one became a piece of their story. Fallon never went back to London full-time. She kept a small office there, but chose to live in the city where Trent and Olivia had built their lives. She didn't need glass towers or gala invites anymore. She had everything she needed in a 2-bedroom home with blue shutters and a porch swing Olivia helped paint. Sometimes, late at night, when the world was quiet and their daughter was asleep upstairs, Trent would pull Fallon close and whisper the same words into her hair. "I'd still take that punch for you." And every time, she'd answer the same way. "I'd still fall for you on that sidewalk." And they did. Again and again. Forever,